In this episode, we are getting into one of the most practical parts of security leadership because a program is never stronger than the people expected to run it every day. New learners sometimes picture cybersecurity as a field driven mainly by tools, alerts, and technical controls, but in real organizations, the quality of the team often matters just as much as the technology itself. A company can buy impressive products and still struggle badly if the team is understaffed, misaligned, unclear on priorities, or constantly reacting without direction. That is why staffing and managing security teams is such an important topic for anyone learning security management. It is not only about hiring talented people. It is about deciding what kind of team the organization actually needs, how responsibilities should be divided, how people should be supported and developed, and how a leader creates an environment where the team can do difficult work consistently without losing focus, motivation, or trust. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A strong security team begins with the understanding that staffing is a business decision, not just a technical one. Leaders are not simply counting how many analysts, engineers, or managers they can afford to place on an organizational chart. They are deciding how the organization will protect important data, sustain operations, respond to incidents, meet obligations, and support growth under real-world constraints. That means the right team size and shape depend on the business itself. A small company with a limited technology footprint may need a lean team that focuses on governance, vendor oversight, and a few essential operational controls, while a large enterprise with global operations, regulated data, and a complex environment may need many specialized roles. The important point for a beginner is that there is no universal perfect team structure. Good staffing starts with understanding the organization's risk profile, technical complexity, business priorities, and operating model. Once that foundation is clear, team design becomes much more rational and much less driven by guesswork or trends. That business alignment matters because security teams often fail when they are built around generic assumptions instead of actual organizational need. A leader might copy the structure of a much larger company or try to build around the latest industry fashion without asking what the business truly depends on. Effective staffing starts by asking practical questions. What must the organization protect most carefully? Which systems or services create the greatest exposure if they fail? How much of the environment is built internally? How much is outsourced? And how much change is happening at once? A company expanding into cloud platforms, digital customer services, and third-party integrations will likely need a different team mix than a company focused on internal systems and stable operations. This is why staffing should connect directly to risk assessment and strategic planning. The team exists to support the business and reduce meaningful exposure, not to imitate a model that sounded impressive somewhere else. When leaders understand that connection, hiring decisions become far more deliberate and far less reactive. Once leaders understand the business and risk environment, they can think more clearly about team structure. Some organizations use a highly centralized model where most security work is owned by one team that sets standards, manages operations, and coordinates incidents from a single function. Others use a more distributed model where security specialists sit closer to business units, technology groups, or product teams while still following shared policy and governance. Many organizations end up with a hybrid model because it balances consistency with local knowledge. A centralized approach can create stronger standardization, clearer oversight, and easier governance, but it may also become slow or distant from operational realities if the business is large and varied. A distributed approach can improve responsiveness and local understanding, but it can also create inconsistency if roles, authority, and coordination are not clear. For a beginner, the key lesson is that structure should help the team serve the business effectively. The best model is the one that supports accountability, communication, and risk management in the environment the organization actually has. Within that structure, role clarity becomes extremely important because security work is broad and can easily become muddled if teams are asked to do everything at once. Some roles focus on governance, policy, and risk oversight. Others focus on engineering, architecture, identity, vendor review, resilience, awareness, or incident response. Some organizations also rely heavily on operational monitoring through a Security Operations Center, SOC, while others place more emphasis on coordination and vendor-managed services. The exact mix will vary, but the basic lesson remains the same. People work more effectively when they understand what they are accountable for, where their authority begins and ends, and how their work connects to the broader mission of the team. Without that clarity, tasks overlap awkwardly, important work falls between teams, and strong employees become frustrated because they spend too much time negotiating boundaries instead of reducing risk. Good managers therefore define responsibilities early and revisit them as the business changes, because unclear roles are one of the fastest ways to weaken a growing security program. Hiring for security roles is also more nuanced than simply looking for the deepest technical specialist available. Technical skill matters, but good teams are built from a mix of judgment, communication, curiosity, discipline, and the ability to keep learning as conditions change. A candidate may be very strong technically and still struggle in a role that requires clear communication with business leaders, patient process ownership, or calm coordination during stressful incidents. This is one reason experienced security managers often look for underlying qualities instead of only looking for the longest list of tools on a resume. They want people who can think clearly, ask good questions, learn new environments, write usable documentation, and work well with others whose priorities differ from their own. For beginners, this is an important mindset shift. Security is not only about stopping attacks. It is also about making good decisions, explaining risk in plain language, handling ambiguity, and maintaining trust across the organization. A strong team usually includes people with different strengths who complement each other rather than a group of nearly identical specialists. Good staffing also means thinking carefully about balance across experience levels. A team made entirely of senior specialists may be expensive, difficult to retain, and less healthy over time if no one is developing into the next generation of leadership and technical depth. A team made entirely of junior staff may be eager and hardworking, but may struggle when incidents become complex or when the organization needs mature judgment during difficult trade-offs. The healthiest teams often include a mix of seasoned professionals, mid-level contributors, and early career employees who can grow over time with guidance and structure. This mix creates resilience because knowledge is not trapped in only one or two people, and it supports continuity when turnover happens, which it inevitably will. It also helps with succession planning, because the organization is not left scrambling when a key leader departs unexpectedly. A manager who thinks only about filling immediate gaps may overlook this longer view, but strong staffing takes both present workload and future capability seriously. Building a team is not just a hiring exercise. It is an investment in continuity, depth, and the organization's future ability to manage risk well. Another important decision is how much work should be handled internally and how much should be supported by outside help. Some organizations use contractors, consultants, or managed providers for specialized support, monitoring coverage, assessments, or surge capacity during major efforts. This can be very useful, especially when the organization lacks internal expertise in a narrow area or cannot justify full-time staffing for every need. Even so, outsourcing does not remove the need for internal ownership. A company may rely on outside support, but someone inside still needs to understand the service, evaluate quality, coordinate response, and own the business consequence if the outside party fails. This is a very important lesson for new learners because it reflects a broader truth in security management. External support can extend a team, but it does not replace leadership, accountability, or internal understanding. The smartest staffing models use outside help deliberately, filling genuine gaps while preserving enough internal capability to govern the work, make informed decisions, and maintain control over critical risk areas instead of becoming dependent without visibility. Once people join the team, onboarding and development become just as important as hiring. A security professional may arrive with strong skills and still struggle if the organization fails to explain its systems, business priorities, risk appetite, reporting expectations, and decision culture. Effective onboarding helps new team members understand not only the technology they will encounter, but also why the business operates the way it does and what kinds of consequences matter most when something goes wrong. Training should continue well beyond the first few weeks. Security work changes quickly, and teams need time to keep their knowledge current in a way that supports both technical growth and management maturity. Leaders who expect development to happen only through crisis or self-study often end up with uneven capability and exhausted employees. Strong managers create a learning environment on purpose. They encourage mentoring, scenario discussion, cross-training, post-incident learning, and gradual exposure to broader responsibilities so the team becomes stronger over time instead of relying forever on the same few experienced people to solve every difficult problem. Managing a security team well also requires clear priorities, because security work can expand endlessly if no one defines what matters most. There will always be more findings, more projects, more requests, more tools, and more urgent messages than the team can handle at once. A weak manager responds by letting the loudest issue drive the day, which usually produces churn, confusion, and shallow progress across too many fronts. A strong manager sets direction. That means translating business needs and risk priorities into work the team can actually execute, deciding what deserves immediate effort and what can wait, and making sure people understand why those choices were made. This is especially important in security because teams often serve many stakeholders at once, including information technology, business operations, legal, audit, compliance, and executive leadership. Without prioritization, the team becomes reactive and demoralized. With prioritization, the team may still be busy, but it is at least moving with purpose. Good management gives people a defensible basis for saying yes, not yet, or no, and that protects both the business and the team's effectiveness. Communication and culture are just as important as planning and staffing levels. Security teams often work under pressure, deal with ambiguity, and deliver messages that other groups do not always enjoy hearing. If the internal culture is brittle, fearful, or overly political, the team may become hesitant, isolated, or excessively reactive. Good managers work hard to create a culture where people can raise concerns early, ask questions without embarrassment, admit uncertainty, and learn from mistakes without assuming every misstep will be punished. That kind of environment supports better judgment because people are more willing to surface weak signals before they become large failures. It also improves collaboration with the rest of the organization. A security team that communicates clearly, listens well, and explains risk in practical terms is much more likely to be trusted than a team that seems dismissive, opaque, or permanently alarmed. For beginners, this is another important lesson. Strong security management is not only about technical authority. It is also about emotional steadiness, respectful communication, and building enough trust that difficult conversations can happen productively. Workload management deserves special attention because security teams are highly vulnerable to burnout when leaders treat urgency as the permanent default setting. Incidents, audits, project deadlines, executive requests, and staffing gaps can easily pile up until the team begins operating in survival mode. At first, that may look like dedication, but over time it usually leads to mistakes, turnover, weak documentation, short tempers, and reduced creativity in solving problems. Good managers watch capacity closely. They know that heroic effort may be necessary at moments of real crisis, but it cannot become the normal operating model. This means paying attention to on-call design, escalation pathways, realistic timelines, after-hours expectations, recovery time after major incidents, and whether a few strong individuals are silently carrying too much of the load. It also means being honest with leadership when demand exceeds what the team can sustain responsibly. Mature management protects the team's endurance, because a burned-out security function may still look busy for a while, but its ability to make good decisions and respond well under pressure will steadily decline. Performance management in security should also be handled thoughtfully. A team needs accountability, but it needs the right kind of accountability. If managers rely on crude activity counts alone, they may push people toward work that is easy to measure rather than work that truly reduces risk. Closing tickets quickly, attending many meetings, or generating large numbers of alerts may look productive without actually improving the organization's security posture. This is why performance discussions should include both outcomes and behaviors. A key performance indicator, KPI, can be useful when it reflects something meaningful, such as improved control reliability, reduced response time for serious events, stronger completion of required reviews, or better remediation discipline in important areas. Even then, numbers should be paired with judgment. Managers should also evaluate collaboration, communication quality, initiative, documentation, mentoring, and the ability to work through ambiguity without creating unnecessary friction. Strong teams are built through fair expectations and regular feedback, not through fear, vanity metrics, or unclear standards that leave people guessing about what good performance actually looks like. Retention is another major part of managing security teams, because replacing skilled people is expensive and disruptive even when a role is eventually filled. People leave for many reasons, including compensation, limited growth, poor leadership, chronic stress, weak team culture, or the feeling that their work is not respected or understood. Good managers cannot solve every one of those problems alone, but they can influence many of them. They can create development paths, delegate meaningful responsibility, recognize contributions fairly, provide clarity during difficult periods, and advocate for the team when business demands become unrealistic. They can also reduce single points of failure by documenting important processes, encouraging knowledge sharing, and planning for succession rather than hoping turnover will never happen. This matters because retention is not only about keeping people happy. It is also about preserving institutional knowledge and maintaining continuity in an area where context matters greatly. A stable team with shared understanding will often outperform a constantly rotating team of talented individuals, simply because continuity supports faster decisions, better trust, and more reliable execution over time. By the end of this discussion, the main lesson should feel clear and practical. Staffing and managing security teams is not just about filling seats with technically capable people. It is about building a team that fits the business, assigning work clearly, balancing internal capability with outside support, developing people over time, setting priorities honestly, managing workload carefully, and creating a culture where judgment and collaboration can thrive. Good security leaders understand that the team is both a protective function and a human system. It needs structure, support, direction, and room to grow if it is going to reduce risk consistently. For a new learner, this is one of the most useful ways to think about security leadership as a whole. Tools matter, policies matter, and processes matter, but people are the part that makes all of those things work in real life. When the team is staffed thoughtfully and managed well, the organization becomes not only more secure, but also more resilient, more accountable, and much better prepared for the difficult decisions that security work always brings.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.